Aqualung, my friend, don't just start away uneasy. You poor old sod, you see it's only me. Sitting on the park bench, I'm little girls with bad intent. Snot running down his nose, greasy fingers smearing shabby clothes. Hey, Aqualung, drying in the cold sun, watching as the pretty panties run. Hey, Aqualung, feeling like a dead duck, spitting out pieces of his broken luck. Hey, Aqualung.
And I was Jethro Tull with Aqualung. Remind you of anybody? Shh.
Gurgle, gurgle, gurgle.
Gurgle. Okay. We're here with Agent X talking to us via Sputnik from an undisclosed location nowhere near William Barr or Rudy Giuliani or any of those dudes.
Bad dudes.
You made an attempt to get in touch with the minions of the biggest, baddest dude, the bigliest, badliest dude now on the block of Pennsylvania Avenue, known as 1600. But at the time, he was only vying for that residence. He had filled out his application for the residence.
Yeah. He was working hard at it, spending billions
of other people's money.
Yeah,
actually.
exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Were you actually able to talk to any of his people other than the security guards?
Well, the second security guard sent me downstairs on the golden escalator. And one thing that I noticed when I first walked into Trump Tower is that it stunk terribly in that hotel.
What did it smell like?
Low tide at the sewer plant.
Oh, really?
It reeked bad, and it was kind of sickening. Well, the waterfall that flows from the lobby area down into the basement where the dining room, the bar, and the buffet is, when you go down the escalator, I don't think it was very clean. You know, I'm kind of getting nauseous from all of this, and I'm thinking about what I'm going to say to whoever I talk to. When I got to the bottom of the escalator, I went up to the other security desk in front of the ballroom.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess that's where the campaign headquarters was, inside the ballroom downstairs in Trump Tower, and explained to that security guard who I was, what I was doing there. And every time I introduced myself to somebody and put my hand out to shake their hand, they'd shake my hand and everything, but nobody would tell me their name. Some of the people were pretty peculiar about it. You know, they're like, I don't have to tell you my name. I don't have to tell you my name. Okay, just relax.
You've probably developed the habit as you're following the trails of evidence and things that you're trying to follow, making note of who you talk to.
Exactly.
Contemporaneous notes.
Oh, exactly.
Which are admissible in court.
Exactly. Yeah. All the time. I'm doing that all the time.
I notice you're not taking notes now.
I know who you are.
You think you do.
Yeah.
Das Zadonio, tovarish.
Yeah. Da.
Da, do-da.
So I ended up speaking with the security guard at the podium in front of the ballroom doors. And
this is Moscow, after all.
Yeah, right. The other Moscow.
Nastrovia.
And as we were speaking, a lady came up and actually said his name, quite by accident. He jumped all over her for saying his name. And I just looked at him. I said, hey, man, it's cool. I said, I'm just going to go wait over here. I'm going to sit down over here and just wait for somebody to come out and speak to me. Only a few minutes went by. It looked to me like Kellyanne Conway came out, but with some funny-looking hairpiece in. As soon as she approached me, I was actually standing up to go to the washroom because I walked from the main library all the way to Trump Tower nonstop.
And you also had to listen to this waterfall in the lobby.
Yeah.
So things were beginning to want to flow.
Okay. So when I came back, she was gone. And I went up and spoke to the security guard again. And I asked him, I said, where'd she go? He said, oh, she'll be right back. So we continued speaking. He asked me what I was doing there. So I pulled my cell phone out, and I had photographs on my cell phone of some of my documentation and some of the stuff from the FBI, the wanted poster and everything else. And we were going through it. Shortly thereafter, Steve Bannon walked out of the ballroom door. He kind of walked up to the podium, and he was listening to the security guard and I talk. And he asked me, he goes, hey, can I see that? And he was referring to the pictures on my cell phone. So I said, yeah, sure. I handed him my cell phone. He didn't even look at it. He had like a sweatshirt on, a locker-up sweatshirt, and then a hoodie over it. And he just grabbed my cell phone and put it up to his chest and covered it with both hands, and he started hitting the side buttons on it. And I kind of looked at the security guard, and the security guard looked at me, and we looked at him, and I put my hand out and said, give me my phone back. And
maybe he was copying everything on your phone with Bluetooth or something.
Yeah, I don't know, like cloning it or something like that. Whatever technology is out there to possibly do something like that. He wouldn't respond. I asked him several times, give me my cell phone back. Stop doing what you're doing. I took a step right between his legs and got right in his face and put my hand out, pretty much even with my cell phone, and it kind of startled him. And he took a step back and he goes, oh, this is your phone. And he actually looks down and he just peeks at my phone, puts it back to his chest, and he's still hitting the side buttons. And then I stepped in on him again, and I told him, last time, very carefully, hand me the federal evidence. And he just kind of looked at me and he goes, oh, okay. And he laid my cell phone down, face down in my hand. And I grabbed it and picked it up and looked at the screen, and the screen was red and black. And I had never seen that screen on my phone before or since, how the phone cycles off. By the time I got it to cycle back on, it went to like text messages or something like that. That's normally in my phone. Then he goes, what are you doing here? What do you want? And I kind of nutshelled it for him. I said, I have some information about the Clinton administration, and I'd just like to speak to a staffer and turn this information over. He started making rude comments, and I introduced myself to him to try to diffuse the situation. He started cussing and swearing, saying, he didn't care who I was. He introduced himself as Joey Bag of Donuts. And I almost started laughing, but I realized what was going on, and he starts screaming at the top of his lungs. Now, this is downstairs in Trump Tower. Yeah. So everybody at the buffet, everybody in the dining room, everybody at the bar turned around. There was at least 100 people there, plus the security guard standing next to me and a brand new security guard standing right behind me.
Okay.
And as he's screaming, what he was saying was very pertinent. I explained to him that one of my children was abducted. Because I pushed the issue, 2 more of my children were murdered, and I went on from there. Well, he persisted in cussing and swearing, telling me that nobody cares about me, nobody cares about my effing children, and so on and so forth. Meanwhile, everybody in the restaurant, bar, and the buffet is looking. The 2 security guards were becoming more and more nervous, and I just let the guy go. I just let him rant and rave. And when he got done, I asked him, I said, are you finished? Like, quite finished? And he kind of backed up and looked at me. And I said, are you sure this is how you want to handle this? And he wouldn't answer me. He refused to answer me. He kind of turned, walked back in the ballroom, and I looked at the security guard, and I handed the security guard 3 DVDs which is a documentary I produced about the issue out of Alaska, what transpired in Lewiston, Idaho, and a few things in between. And then after I started conducting my own manhunt for Eric Robert Rudolph on the Appalachian Trail is ultimately where it led to, which is where I produced this documentary, was up on top of Mount Rogers in the middle of the night out in the cold.
You're in a tent talking into your cell phone?
No, actually, no. I was living in a restaurant.
Okay.
Literally living in a restaurant.
How was the food?
Excellent. An old lady and an old man, Mike and Millie Van Kirk, whom they've passed away. I met them on the mountain, and they kind of took care of me.
In the mafia sense, you're not at the bottom of the river.
Well, Millie was actually somebody. During World War II, she was one of a few women that worked for salary for Morgan Fairchild, a military contractor. And Millie was actually a spy catcher during World War II.
Huh.
Yeah. And she was very good at it. And nothing slipped past Millie. I can guarantee you that. And right after I met her, Millie and a few of the other people that were around sat down in the cafe one day and confronted me, and they go, "Who exactly are you looking for?" And I was like, "Oh boy, is it that obvious?" And Millie's like, "Yeah." And there was another old boy there that was a Vietnam vet, and he was next level clandestine services and all that, and he understood something about it also. So I told him who I was looking for, and the upside to it was they kind of helped me with some information, and the mountain people kind of took a liking to me up there in Virginia. When I explained to them what I was up against out of Alaska and everything I had done to this point, trying to contact law enforcement or the judicial system or somebody for help, like a politician or something, they knew that I was in trouble.
So throwing that artist sketch of you, now do you remember posing for that sketch?
No, not at all.
Was this just like an accidental resemblance?
No, there was a period of time between, I was struck by a car in 91, intentional hit and run, December 14th of 91. By 92, between 92 and actually just recently over in Frankfort, Kentucky, I've been photographed and videotaped so many times to where even strangers, like I'd be in a restaurant and a total stranger would walk up to me while my friends are around me, my student rep, guys that were in bands that I was in together, and they're like, "Excuse me, do you realize that person's taking pictures of you over there?" And I'd be like, "Yeah, I see them behind the little cocoa tree there. Yeah, I know they're there." And this went on between 92 and 96 pretty frequently. I left Miami and started moving around the country. And when I did that, I had no more friends around. I was always alone. This type of behavior, it always took place. And it was interesting. It was the same MO. There would be a guy standing like a block away with a great big huge camera with a telephoto lens, obviously pointing it right at me. One time in particular, it's early morning in Portsmouth, New Hampshire in early 95. I'm the only person on the street other than this guy taking pictures of me, and the guy standing in front of the FBI building snapping pictures. Just getting hit by a car, I was unable to run and move very well, so chasing the guy down wasn't going to happen. And usually by the time I get to them, they've left. They take off on me. So many people had witnessed this. By 95, it was kind of whatever. It was kind of normal, other than it was disturbing. It wasn't until 2000 that I got arrested in Lewiston that I even knew that there was anything going on in my life connected to Eric Robert Rudolph or the Olympic bombing in Atlanta in 96.
So Lewiston was your first arrest?
No. There were other people coming at me with weapons. I was taken to a police station in California and then let go. Nobody said boo to me about anything other than I got jumped by a bunch of people with guns, and then they hauled me off to the cop shop and let me go when I got there. And I didn't even know where I was. The same thing happened in between Tampa and Orlando, and I ended up in the Orient Road prison for 11 days. And by the time I went before 3 judges, the third judge was losing it. And she's like, the first person I want to speak to is this man right here. And she goes, please stand up. And I stood up. She goes, do you know why you're here? And I said, no. She goes, how did you get here? And I said, a policeman brought me here. A state trooper actually brought me here. And she goes, he didn't tell you what you were brought here for? I said, no, And she goes, I've never seen a charge like this, but it was disobeying a public safety officer. She goes, explain what happened. So I explained the story. This one particular state trooper, Florida State Trooper Dorsby, he was way out of control, extremely disrespectful, down to violent. He almost ran me over with his car. He asked me to go back to the bottom of an on-ramp, which I did. By the time I get to the bottom, I'm jumping out of the way, realizing something's coming behind me. And by the time his car stops, it stops right between the front door and the back door of the doorpost. So if I wouldn't have jumped out of the way, he'd have ran me over. He jumps out of his police car, grabs me, and throws me on the hood. And I'm screaming, ow, I just got hit by a car a couple months ago, knock it off. 2 other state troopers show up. By this time, I'm in the car, in the front seat, handcuffed in the front, with my hands in front of me. The 2 state troopers come up and talk to me individually, and they ask me what's going on. And I'm like, I have no idea. I'm like, this guy just flipped out, came at me with his car, almost ran me over. I said, obviously, he has a problem with black people, because every other word coming out of his mouth is the N-word. And this is a big black Florida state trooper. And he goes, we know, young man, we know. He goes, did he hurt you? I go, he slammed me on the hood, man. I said, I just got hit by a car. Okay, we're going to handle this. Well, I witnessed 3 state troopers from the state of Florida about get into a fist fight over the 2 troopers that showed up trying to talk Trooper Dorsby into unarresting me for like 30 minutes. Finally, it broke down to where he had to literally flee back to his car, jump in the car with me, drive off to the jail, park in the parking lot of the jail while finishing out his paperwork. He went through my backpack. I told him not to. It was full of legal briefs. And he's reading my legal briefs. He was reading them out loud to the other troopers, and the other troopers kept telling him, put that back, don't look at that. That's private information if it's legal documentation. And Dorsby was tripping. He's like, he's suing everybody. He's like, you got to read this brief. So by the time I end up in the parking lot with him, he spotted I had a Bible in my backpack. Oh boy. He starts going on and on about my Bible being a man of the cloth, this, that, and the other thing. And then literally breaks down into tears, screaming. We're in a car now. I'm sitting right next to this man in a police cruiser, and he's screaming how people want to kill him. And he only has a week left before he retires. And all these people were after him to kill him. And I kind of just looked at him and I said, hey man, if you can't handle the job, just quit. And he throws the clipboard into the back of the car, throws his car in gear, and flies up to the Sallyport door for offloading people that have been arrested into the jail. He rips me out of the car, leaves me on the platform, throws my bag onto the platform, and takes off. Well, the duty officer comes out and he goes, what are you doing here? I'm like, I have no idea. He goes, okay, come on in. We're going to get this all straightened out. Well, 11 days later, I got a judge screaming at every single cop in the room.
We're gonna hold right there because we got to do this.
This is Roland Joe, and this is KRFP Moscow.
This is Fiddlin' Big Al sitting in tonight till 1 a.m. talking with Secret Agent X, and just to get you in the mood, we're gonna throw some fugs at you. This is called Dirty Old Man.
Handing out
Never say wiggling my toes in my boots.
Never say wiggling my toes in my boots.
Communist literature in my hands.
Communist literature in my hands.
Pinching all the bosoms I can.
Pinching all the bosoms I can.
I'm a dirty old man.
Dirty old man, dirty old man.
Hello, kiddies. Here I am again on the old schoolyard. I got thrill pills for all the little chickies, and I got funny cigarettes for all you boys. And I got dirty pictures for all of you together. Well, I guess I better go. I see the campus cop is coming. I better split now. Remember Leon Trotsky.
Hanging out by the schoolyard gate.
Hanging out by the schoolyard gate.
Looking up every dress I can.
Looking up every dress I can.
Sucking into my upper plate.
Sucking into my upper plate.
I'm a dirty old man.
Dirty old man, dirty old man.
Handing out joints to the kids at school.
Handing out joints to the kids at school.
Giving out pictures and porn and pills.
Giving out pictures and porn and pills.
Filling in front of my shirt with drool.
Filling in front of my shirt with drool.
I'm a dirty old man.
Dirty old man, dirty old man.
Nervously wiggling my toes in my boots.
Nervously wiggling my toes in my boots.
Communist literature in my hands.
Communist literature in my hands.
Pinching all the bosoms I can.
Pinching all the bosoms I can.
I'm a dirty old man.
Dirty old man, dirty old man. You. I'm a dirty old man.
We were seeing communists everywhere back in the day. We're here talking with Agent X about his experiences being arrested here and there and everywhere, and then getting to the root of the problem by tracking down the person that he kept being arrested and mistaken for. But that wasn't the end of it, was it?
Nope, it wasn't. When Steve Bannon was going off in the Trump hotel, screaming and yelling and cussing and swearing and acting so offended by what I said, I was really looking at him and trying to understand what was going on, why people were acting so paranoid, not dropping names. And then this happens. You know, he comes out and makes a huge scene downstairs at Trump Tower, and I'm thinking, wow, Manhattan, last place in the world I want to get arrested for anything. I kind of made my way out of the downstairs dining area back up to the central security station. There was a different security yard there. This is the one in front of the bank of elevators. I started talking to this gentleman, introduced myself, told him where I was from, and I asked him, I said, the old guy downstairs with the moles all over his face and the silver hair and the like blue colored eyes, I'm like, who is he? What's his name? And he thought about it for a second. He goes, I'm not quite sure. And when I introduced myself to him, he actually said his name, Tony. He was the head security guard for Trump Tower. Mm-hmm. Well, I apologized for the scene downstairs to him. I said, I don't know what happened. I said, but the old guy freaked out, and he started screaming and yelling. I said, I'm sorry about that. I said, I left a 3 DVD set downstairs with the security guard downstairs. It's a documentary I produced. I said, if you could please get it to one of Trump's staffers to review it. I said, it's information about the Clinton administration, among other things. I said, I'm trying to get to the bottom of this issue, and this might help me. And he said, okay. He actually gave me a phone number to contact him. I told him my phone number was on each disc. Since then, I've heard nothing from the Trump administration. I even went back to the hotel 2 more times after that to try to reclaim the discs.
Don't you think they're a little bit busy these days?
Yeah, they are. They're scrambling. It's that other 3-letter acronym, CYA.
Oh.
It seems to me with a lot of the news reports about Trump and the people around Trump. There's a lot of shenanigans going on at every level. And it seemed to me that these were Trump's people now. And I figured, well, if that's their attitude about people's children and families and justice, then something's really wrong here. And, you know, I left Trump Tower that day. I went back a couple more times. I ended up staying through till like November 2nd or November 3rd. I left the Manhattan area and went back to my brother's.
Okay, well, we're going to throw another Fugs tune on here. This one is called If You Want to Be President.
You got to be dirty.
Oh, but you got to look clean.
Yeah. Mere appearance.
If you want to be president a very long while, be sure you invade a very small aisle. For if it is tiny and its soldiers are few, they'll never make a fool out of you. You may kill with impunity, kill for a lark, if the color of your victims is rather dark. And all of the Americans will love you too, if the total dead Americans is rather few. But when the number mounts up, as it did in Vietnam, then you could be in a bad political jump. So invade a tiny island where the soldiers are naive, and leave Nicaragua to their mercenaries. And always kill people for their own good, ban meetings and some papers for libertyhood. Postpone the elections that you said you sought, for what if the results are not what they are? Protect all Americans, kill a lesser breed. It's the black man's burden, it's your bloodlust that you feed. Old soldiers never die, they only kill. And movie stars with general bars, they fill the corporate till. Oh, someone else's suffering is interesting to see. You can watch it every night on CBS or NBC. Though we can only have one nuclear war. Well, 1, 2, 3 Vietnams, we can have even more. So if you want to stay president a very long while, be sure you invade a teeny aisle. For if it is small enough, its soldiers very few, it can never make a fool out of you. I think.
There are various ways of invading other than going in with armies and being made a fool of. You can, seems a lot of things are being turned over. Brazil, Bolivia, what's going on?
Oh, yeah, Turkey.
Yeah.
China.
Strange things are afoot, and there's connections that we can't see that cause all this. And actually, you know, if you're going to like rule the world surreptitiously, nobody even knows you're doing it if you're successful at it.
Yeah, exactly. So, it's too late before they figure it out.
Yeah. So, is it too late?
Nope.
Nope.
Nope. People have been figuring it out for quite a while and piecing it together. And those are the kind of people that I hang out with.
Yeah. Okay. Your experience speaking with Donald Trump personally for about 10 minutes and then trying to take your information, your plight to the Clinton administration was rebuffed or just not acted on. Mm-hmm. Well, it wasn't acted on in a way of, oh, thank you, sir, how can we help you? We're your government. It was, how can we haunt you?
Exactly, yeah. They had no intentions of doing anything that they were espousing up until that point.
Okay. Did you feel like you were being actively opposed and subverted, or just treated like, oh, here's another crackpot?
Well, at first it seemed to be just treated like I was some kind of crackpot.
Is your pot in fact cracked?
In several places, but still it's a good pot. You know, my appearance...
Void where prohibited.
Yeah, my appearance was fine. You know, I clean clothes, nice clothes. The big backpack did kind of sketch people out.
Like, is that where you live? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, no, it was even out on the street. There was groups of policemen that were tactical cops, usually 4 of them together at any given time with heavy weapons and full body armor. Mm-hmm. And they were everywhere. And I noticed, like, walking around Times Square or walking to and fro from Bryant Park, or any of the other parks that I went to, at a crosswalk waiting to cross, people would move away from me. I noticed that frequently. And then when the light turned to cross, I'd start crossing and people would kind of hang back. Law enforcement, just common citizens, people were noited out about somebody carrying around a rather large backpack. I noticed that right off the bat. You know, there was a few odd comments going in and out of the main library in downtown Manhattan, you know, but it was the security staff and they were kind of making jokes.
Yeah, is he going to pitch a tent in the reference room? You know?
Oh, no, more like, you ain't going to blow me up now, are you? That's like the security guards on the way in. One of the comments was, I'm afraid to look in your backpack. Well, then don't.
Oh, let's cue some more music here. We heard of If You Want to Be President. This is an interesting little piece by the Fugs. The writing is by Allen Ginsberg. I don't know, related to Ruth Bader Ginsburg. I don't know, you know, but also, well, related actually to Ralph Ginsburg. And Ralph Ginsburg was Allen Ginsberg's brother. They're part of the Beats and Greenwich Village and all that. And Ralph did time for having published Henry Miller in its original form, including a certain spelling of a certain word which is prohibited to be spoken over the airwaves between the hours of 6 a.m. and 10 p.m. because the children, if they ever heard that word, it would utterly destroy them. Ralph Ginsburg went to prison for having printed Henry Miller's Tropic of Cancer, Tropic of Capricorn, which included this word. Always resourceful, the publishing industry shuffled the deck, redealt the cards, and the 4-letter word was replaced with the 3-letter word Fug, F-U-G. This is where the band The Fugs drew their name.
I saw the best minds of my generation. Saw by madness, stars from naked. I saw the best minds of my generation. Saw by madness, stars from naked. I saw the best minds of my generation. Saw by madness, stars from naked. I saw the best minds of my generation. Dragging on south to the roof of the dawn in the garden of fiction. Best minds of my generation. Angel had a hip and burning for the east. Connected to the star dynamo in the scenery of sky. Hollow eyed eyes that are floating in the supernatural darkness of the cold water class. Turn across the cup of the contemplating jazz. This is mine, my generation. Strong man under the yelling for Mohammedan angels. Executors in illuminated. Roulette cigarettes and boxcars, racking through skulls on those parachute grandfather night. Who scoured in unshaven instruments and underwear, burning their mother in the sky. Who howled on their knees in the subway, were dragged on the subway generation. Ailey, llama, llama, spuckity, ailey, llama, llama, spuckity, ailey, llama, llama, spuckity, ailey, llama, llama, spuckity, ailey, llama, llama, spuckity. Man, bomb, and angel beating time unknown, yet went down here, knocked it up to say, I'm good after death. And Rosie incarnate in the ghost that goes to jazz in the gold-born shadow of the man and the suffering of America's naked mind to do it. Llama, llama, spuckity, llama, llama, city down the left parade. With the absolute heart of the poem of life butchered out of somebody's good to eat 1,000 pieces.
sphinx of cement and aluminum fast open their skulls and they off their brains and imagination.
Anyway, that was an interesting song by the Fugs, part of the New York beat scene, etc. It's taken from the first lines of the poem by Allen Ginsberg, Howl. An interesting poem in that when the poem was released by publisher Lawrence Ferlinghetti of City Lights Books, Ferlinghetti and the bookstore's manager, Shingyoshi Murao, were charged with disseminating obscene literature, and both were arrested. On October 3rd, 1957, Judge Clayton W. Horn ruled that the poem was not obscene. According to Ginsberg's bibliographer and archivist, Bill Morgan, it was a terrifying peyote vision that was the principal inspiration for Howl. I didn't realize that peyote grew in Greenwich Village, but talk about cultural appropriation. The Beat generation going after the peyote, which is the sacrament of the Native American Church. And if you ever read Carlos Castaneda, there's a large, long tradition of traditional healers using plant medicines of all kinds. One of the plant medicines of all kinds that was very useful in medicine is, well, it's not legal in the state that we're sitting in, but 8-10 miles away, perfectly legal. Certain other natural substances are of dubious legal standing, other than if they are included in certain religious ceremonies as part of a religion, they're allowed, such as Church of the Virgin Mother, which is an ayahuasca cult from Brazil, perfectly legal in the United States for these religious people. There's been court cases of it, and also the same thing with the Native American Church and the use of peyote. Of course, somebody came up with a Church of Weed. In fact, that was actually in Seattle. Anyway, this will all get sorted out. It's hard to tell what's going on. We've got Michael Bloomberg stepping into the presidential race with his big chunk of billions that he's got. He says, legalizing pot was a terrible idea. Well, he must have investments in pharmacy or something, because there's a lot of things that natural, traditional herbal medicines have taken care of forever, but you can't patent those, except in certain cases where you manipulate genes. Right now, we have probably a few minutes for the final debriefing of Agent X. You have any more to tell us? Sure, there's much more. This is just like scratching the surface. We're going to talk to you again.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, basically, I've been involved in this issue since 1984. Over this time, I've built a case against the illegal form of government that's operating in the United States. And I believe the reason why nothing has happened as far as even addressing the issues, let alone doing something about them, the issues that I divulged as far as crimes against children in the state of Alaska to the state of Alaska, as it escalated from there. Applying the law to the situation is pretty much all you really need to do. And there's been decades and generations of neglect against children that the government has done nothing about, but also has been directly involved in.
Well, I know some of my indigenous folks, friends, were taken away from their families and put in government schools. Many of them were never heard from again, but those that did come out, their language was beaten out of them. Many of them are loyal subjects of the oppressors, either that or loyal followers of John Barleycorn. This is part of the genocide. Genocide doesn't mean just killing. You can kill a culture and you commit genocide. That's what's been done. The spilling over of that sort of cruelty and evil, you get a Congressional Medal of Honor for having participated in the Wounded Knee massacre, the Sand Creek massacre. You're bashing babies against trees and all that. It's like part of the history of what's happened, and we act like none of that really happened, and we don't do that anymore. Yet we have stories of torture, killing of innocents, basically to get the point across. Don't rock the boat.
Exactly. What happened to me in Alaska was the state of Alaska combined with the federal government just wanted to make an example out of me, because I was rebellious to what was going on. I completely rebelled against the state, and then when I went to the feds for help and they turned on me, I rebelled against them also. They were definitely not doing their duty as it is written out.
Mm-hmm. We're talking about the Constitution and laws, et cetera, et cetera.
Exactly. Yeah, at every level, state and federal.
All right. Well, we've got just a couple minutes left. We'll just leave it hanging right there. There's more that a confidential informant here is got to tell us, but we'll save that for some future time. But first we have to lose these people that have been following us. Did you see them peeking in the windows here?
Oh, yeah.
You said there was an unusual amount of activity.
For as cold as it is right now, yeah, there's a lot of people cruising up and down the alley.
Oh, yeah? Well, we did, earlier we did play that song, Paranoid, so that's...
But I want to thank you, Al, for having me on KRFP, all the listeners for listening in. Stay diligent. Pay attention to what your government's doing locally and federally.
Don't believe everything you read and hear about people that you know, maybe even people that you don't know, because you don't really necessarily ever get the full story. It doesn't matter what side of the fence you're listening from.
Nope. Best thing to do is show up on their doorstep and start asking them questions.
Oh. This is KRFP, and this is Fiddlin' Big Al. Been sitting in tonight, and pretty soon we got a playlist which will probably explode on the scene here, and we will be out of here. So I want to thank our anonymous guest for remaining anonymous. If we all knew what was really going on, he'd run from the building screaming. You know what?
We'd all move to Canada. Well, that wouldn't help either.
Well, you did that once, didn't you?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
And it did not help.
How did you get there? Did you take an airline?
Nope. Took a canoe across Lake Erie.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
At that time, I realized I definitely couldn't go across a common border, so I just went native on them.
I'm thinking, we're either going to be interrupted. Well, it's now 12:58, and we've probably got 2 minutes or maybe less than 2 minutes to consider. We'll just do this. I'm going to start another song here, and when it gets interrupted, it gets interrupted. Here's Deep Purple with Lazy.
Here's a thing which is also off the new album Machine Head, out in a few weeks' time, and it's a kind of rhythm and blues type of thing. It's a thing called Lazy, this one, Lazy.
This is KRFP Moscow.
This is KRFP Moscow, 90.3 FM on the Greater Palouse and www.krfp.org on the World Wide Web.